Indiana Newsdesk is made possible in part by Maller Grodner Attorneys, providing legal services to clients and the community. Understanding, expertise, results. Bloomington and Indianapolis. LawMG.com. IU Center for Rural Engagement, extending IU Bloomington resources to improve Hoosier lives in partnerships with communities and organizations. rural.indiana.edu. Smithville, fiber internet, security solutions, and voice in southern Indiana. More information at smithville.com. Bunger and Robertson, attorneys at law, utilizing 75 years of experience, knowledge, and resources to help individuals and families recover in personal injury matters. Information at lawbr.com. And by WTIU members. Thank you.
Coming up on Indiana Newsdesk. Housing choice vouchers are one of the best ways to help people experiencing homelessness obtain a residence. But the wait list for vouchers is a long one.
I had a Section 8 application in, so did she, and she got hers, and we just decided to live together, She needs help.
In Bloomington, it could take around 250 days to receive a voucher. The proposed Envision Ellettsville plan would guide commercial growth in the community just northeast of Bloomington.
People wanted to build housing developments. They wanted to bring employment opportunities here.
The town has grown by more than 30% in the last 2 decades. And the Indiana Department of Education unveils its second attempt at overhauling the high school diploma process. We'll have these stories plus the latest news from across the state right now on Indiana Newsdesk. Welcome to Indiana Newsdesk. I'm Joe Wren. Bloomington is appealing last week's ruling that blocks the annexation attempt of areas 1A and 1B on the city's southwest side. The ruling came after a 5-day bench trial in May by remonstrators who were able to gather the required signature petitions to appeal in court. In a statement, Mayor Carrie Thompson says the city strongly believes in the merits of its case and remains hopeful about the outcome. She says she would have designed a more inclusive process from the start and has been meeting with those intended to be annexed. Thompson says it could take a year for a decision on the appeal. A U.S. District Court judge in Indianapolis dismissed a lawsuit challenging a controversial new state law that university professors say violates their constitutional rights. The law requires faculty to include a variety of opposing political viewpoints in the classroom or risk losing their tenure protections. The American Civil Liberties Union of Indiana was representing 4 Indiana professors who say the law violates their First and 14th Amendment rights. But Attorney General Todd Rokita, who intervened in the case last week, says the law will foster diversity of thought. He argued the suit should be dismissed because the professors have not been harmed. The city of Bloomington has cleared 4 encampments this year where people experiencing homelessness had been sheltering. The latest was earlier this month when the city cleared an encampment off the rail trail on the south side. Now, according to surveys by the South Central Housing Network, the number of people living unsheltered in Monroe County increased over the past 5 years from 29 to 117. The city and local service providers are partnering to address the rise in unhoused persons. Benta Boutier has been reporting on housing issues in Bloomington. She attended a meeting Wednesday at City Hall, where officials, service providers, and the public all shared opinions and ideas.
The Bloomington Common Council gathered input on what they should do to address homelessness and support work in this area. Attendees broke out into 6 groups, each with a council person. During the first breakout session, groups shared issues they'd noticed. They also talked about addressing safety issues for people experiencing homelessness and others, and ways to allocate resources. During the second round of breakout sessions, groups identified possible solutions and actions City Council can take. One of the suggestions from the group was the city zoning for more housing options. This ties to coverage I've done recently on the Housing Choice Voucher program locally, which national experts support as one of the most effective ways to address homelessness and housing insecurity in communities. Right now, the Bloomington Housing Authority is is making its way through the wait list of current applicants. The last time the list opened was late 2023. I spoke to a couple who made it off the list. The Bloomington Housing Authority's Housing Choice Voucher waitlist has tapered down to 980 as of July. Tina McDaniel and J.R. Grundon moved into an apartment together this spring through a voucher. McDaniel was staying at Wheeler's Shelter for Women until it closed last September.
We didn't really start seeing each other until after I moved in to Friends.
She met Grundon at Friends' place last year. They would go out to coffee shops together like hopscotch.
We just decided to live together, you know. She needs help, you know, like she's a pretty independent woman, but, you know, still there's certain things she needs help with.
McDaniel is blind. Grundon helps her with medication and does household activities like cooking. McDaniel likes to remain independent, but she appreciates Grundon's help and the trust they've built.
I trusted him for 9 months out of the year, and it took me that long to trust somebody.
The average wait time for a housing choice voucher is nearly 250 days with the Bloomington Housing Authority. It's a point-based system that prioritizes location and vulnerability of an individual. Once someone receives a voucher, they have 90 days to find a place that will accept it. The average housing assistance payment is $800 per month.
The demand as always is very high. We have no shortage of applicants.
More than 1,200 people applied in a 40-day period when the waitlist last opened in 2023. The U.S. Department of Housing and Urban Development increased its budget for housing choice vouchers by $2 billion last year, according to a May announcement.
It is a higher amount than it was the previous year, but still there's a gap there. You know, more funding is needed.
More than 40% of people who receive a voucher sign a lease within 30 days. Around a quarter of voucher recipients find a lease within 2 to 3 months.
68% of people are successful with leasing up a voucher. I feel like that number should be much higher. It would have to be disheartening, you know, for someone to be eligible for the program. It's just been that time on the waiting list, you know, to get that help that they need. And then they go out just to be unable to find something.
The success rate is up from 5 years ago when it was 60%. One of the big issues is availability of housing units.
A number of landlords don't accept them, even if their rental range is within the what's called fair market rent for a community.
Fewer than 20 states have laws against income discrimination for renters, and Indiana is not one of them. The number of people experiencing homelessness in Area 10 has remained relatively stable, aside from an increase in 2019. But statewide and nationally, the numbers are trending upwards. Gilmore says moving in with someone you met through the experience of homelessness has potential risks.
The relationships are tricky and for all of us, and so there's unpredictability there, and so that does create some risk for the non-voucher holder.
But he says McDaniel and Grundon knew each other for a while before moving in together.
I think if anybody's got a chance of making it, I think they do.
McDaniel says they still have some work to do getting settled, setting up the apartment with internet and a TV. She'd like some Braille books to read while JR is out of the apartment.
I love the apartment. I'm glad I'm out and on my own. JR is here to help me, but that's what it's for, is if you need help, ask.
She's a hell of a lady. You know, I love her, and you know, we just click in more ways than you can imagine.
Grundon says he'd like to be her registered caregiver. The Bloomington Housing Authority says about 400 landlords are registered to participate in the Housing Choice Voucher program, but only about half are actively participating.
The 3 candidates running for lieutenant governor in Indiana met at a debate Tuesday. None of the candidates shied away from criticizing current Republican state government leadership. Indiana Public Broadcasting's Brandon Smith has this report.
Republican Micah Beckwith, Democrat Terry Gooden, and Libertarian Tanya Hudson met at the State Fair for a debate focused on rural and agricultural issues. From property taxes to water resources to rural economic development, Gooden's message was the same. It's been one-party Republican control that has gotten Indiana into trouble.
We've had a non-transparent government, a government that does not let folks know what's going on in our state. So in other words, what we have is when we have fixes, we have Band-Aid fixes that don't work.
Hudson, the libertarian, advocates for dramatically slashing the size and scope of government.
We need to roll back the rules and regulations, cut taxes, property taxes need to be abolished. You need to have more money, which will put a boost to the economy.
Republican Beckwith says the state's current economic development strategy must change to focus more on small towns.
We can expand broadband, we can make sure that they have access to a global marketplace, and you're going to see not only farms but small businesses in these rural communities come back to life.
Indiana's lieutenant governor serves as the Secretary of Agriculture and oversees the Office of Community and Rural Affairs. For Indiana Public Broadcasting, I'm Brandon Smith at the State House.
Democratic gubernatorial candidate Jennifer McCormick unveiled a plan Thursday that she says aims to provide relief to Hoosiers struggling with sharp spikes in their property tax bills. The $600 million proposal includes increasing property tax deductions for homeowners age 65 and older and veterans with disabilities. Her plan would also increase the income tax deduction for renters and allow more exemptions on every Hoosier taxpayer's income taxes.
It was important that we have that wide range of relief, meaning that a lot of Hoosiers will benefit from this.
Another part of the plan would provide homeowners with a tax credit if their property tax bill increases by 10% or more in a year. Well, we're joined now by Clayton Baumgarth for more headlines from around the state. Hi, Clayton.
Hey, Joe. The Indiana Department of Education unveiled the second draft of its high school diploma overhaul on Wednesday. The new proposal includes one base diploma that more closely resembles the current Core 40. However, some English, math, and science course requirements are more flexible than the current standards. Students can also choose to achieve SEALs or pathways for enrollment, enlistment, or employment on top of the base diploma. The Indiana Association of School Principals and the Association of Public School Superintendents both say they support the new proposal.
The diploma requirements that have been established and were presented to us today are requirements that not only meet the academic rigor that we expect from our Indiana high schools, but go beyond that rigor and include the individualized flexibility.
Indiana, Purdue, and several other state universities joined in support of the state's latest plan. That's after saying the original diploma plan would not meet the requirements for admission. While diplomas are taking up much of the focus, Indiana Secretary of Education Katie Jenner was able to tout some small gains made by third graders in the iRead 3 tests. The pass rate increased to 82.5% this year. That's still more than 4 points below pre-pandemic levels, but it's an increase of 0.6% over last year's results.
It is exciting to have the highest year-over-year increase ever in the history since the start of the test.
The percentage of Monroe County Community School students who passed the test in 2024 was 83.1%, up from 82.6% who passed in 2023. A petition to designate the Green Acres neighborhood a conservation district will go to the Bloomington City Council. The Historic Preservation Commission voted 6-1 in favor of forwarding the nomination, saying the neighborhood has qualities that meet historic and architectural criteria under city code.
The development of Green Acres largely coincides with the tenure of Bloomington President Herman B. Wells from 1937 to 1962, a period of massive expansion in the size and academic breadth of the university.
Green Acres residents nominated the neighborhood in an effort to obtain protections in response to a recent request to demolish 5 single-story homes on Jefferson and 7th Streets. The Historic Preservation Commission also voted to give those homes temporary protection from demolition until the City Council decides on the neighborhood's conservation status. That could come at the Council's August 21st meeting. The Common Council has an executive session set for August 21st. The intersection of Rogers Street and First Street will be closed until October 1st as part of ongoing construction of the Hopewell neighborhood. The city plans to install a new water main at the intersection and repair the roadway. The entire project will enhance First Street between Fairview Street and College Avenue. This project is supported by $4.6 million in federal construction funds. The Bloomington and Ellettsville Chambers of Commerce are proposing a new site for the Monroe County Jail that they say is much cheaper and in a better location than the other options. They told the County Council this week that private property at 3241 West Woodyard Road near the I-69 and Indiana 46 interchange appears to meet the acreage requirement with room to grow in the event of an expansion.
The owners have expressed willingness to sell the property to Monroe County and have indicated that water, sewer, electric infrastructure is available adjacent to the property at the corner of Vernal Pike and Woodyard Road.
The owner, Crowden Enterprises, says it's willing to pay for a Phase 1 environmental study on the land. The Chambers of Commerce say the proposed site is close to health and social services as well as transportation and emergency services. It also contended that the North Park site under consideration would be better used for another purpose.
Locating the Justice Center on that property would not only have negative fiscal impacts to taxpayers, but would be an underutilization of that location. As a gateway to Bloomington and Ellettsville, the North Park property could be incredibly valuable from an economic development standpoint.
It's uncertain whether the County Council will consider the new proposal. There was no discussion on the merits because the letter was read during the time devoted to public comments. Dunn Meadow will be closed for events this fall to restore damage from protests earlier this year. It's unclear when the space will reopen. Many groups say they will need to find other places to host their events, including the annual Swing in September jazz performances. Once possible site is the Conrad Previs Amphitheater behind the President's House on campus. It just reopened for events.
It was outdoors, had an electrical source for things you needed to plug in, but was also in close proximity to all of the great performance units on campus.
The amphitheater had been closed to events since the pandemic. It was constructed in 2015 as a way to promote the arts and humanities. And lastly, highway work zone speed cameras are now active in Indiana for the first time. Lawmakers authorized the speed camera pilot in 2023. The law currently limits the cameras to just 4 highway construction zones statewide. NDOT is starting with cameras in a work zone on Interstate 70 just east of Indianapolis. The agency plans to announce additional sites later this year. The camera takes a photo of the rear of any vehicle that is traveling at least 11 miles per hour over the speed limit when workers are present. Whoever owns the vehicle then receives a warning or citation in the mail. And Joe, you don't want to be that guy.
No, I don't. I don't mind getting those automatic tolls to Louisville. This is a little different.
Yes, yeah, a little bit.
Thanks, Clayton. Coming up next on Indiana Newsdesk. A proposed plan called Envision Ellettsville would be a guide for development in the growing community just outside Bloomington. And we visit with Terre Haute Mayor Brandon Sakbun about the city's plan to reconnect downtown with the Wabash River. These stories and more right here on Indiana Newsdesk.
The journalism on PBS, especially in the groundbreaking Gwen and Judy NewsHour years, was particularly inspiring for me as an adult and, of course, as a journalist. But my earliest inspiration came from Mr. Rogers. He's telling me every day to be kind and that he always wanted a neighbor just like me. A generation later, Daniel Tiger taught my girls the same lessons, so they knew that they could be anybody they choose. PBS opens up new perspectives for all of us. Support your PBS station today.
We cover all the angles. We report the facts. We find clarity. PBS is here, delivering the credible, reliable, thoughtful election coverage you need to make informed decisions. PBS, your trusted election source.
Welcome back to Indiana Newsdesk. Historically a place consisting mainly of farmland and minimal shops, the town of Ellettsville has big plans to revive the community northwest of Bloomington and bring in more businesses through the Envision Ellettsville plan. Isabella Vesperini has this report.
Rachel Peden McCarty's grandparents maintained the Peden farm in Ellettsville for years since moving there in 1941. They lived on Maple Grove Road, when only 7 houses were built on a rocky, unpaved road at the time.
Things were smaller then, so your neighbors, even if there was some distance between, you were still neighbors.
Now, many more apartments are being built. The population has increased about 4.3% in the last decade and approximately 31.5% since 2000. That's a much faster rate than Bloomington's 4.4% population increase since 2000.
We got our first fast food there. It was a 2-window, go both directions drive-through. We had a wallpaper store, we had a carpet store, so it was a one-stop shop to get anything that you needed for your home.
With more growth expected, the Envision Ellettsville Vision Plan was proposed in 2021. It establishes a comprehensive vision for the future to further develop and grow the town. Local businesses, residents, high school students, and not-for-profits gave their input on what change they wanted to see.
We were being positioned as a community, as a place for growth, for affordable housing, for new workforce attraction initiatives. We literally have people knocking on our door. People wanted to build housing developments. They wanted to bring employment opportunities here.
Businesses such as Big B Coffee are starting to appear near the downtown area.
Great location, right on the corner, drawing people to our downtown. That's exactly what we want.
There will also be a new development on 115 acres next to Edgewood High School.
And the concept of new urbanism is everything you need. You walk out your front door, you can walk to a restaurant, you can walk to a grocery, you can walk to shopping, you can walk to whatever you want to. But it's also got room for cars, you still have garage, you still have on-street parking.
This development will provide a more stabilized commercial center for Ellettsville while also being only 15 minutes to downtown Bloomington. He hopes to build a hotel, assisted living centers, coffee shops, retail stores, and more. Residents also want more dining and nightlife options and more childcare and medical services.
We want to just run down the road and grab something for dinner without having to drive into Bloomington.
Lewis has lived in Ellettsville since 1990 and runs her own hair salon from home. She likes Ellettsville because housing is more affordable than it is in Bloomington. She also appreciates the strong sense of community.
We like our small town. We really do. It's quaint. Everybody knows each other, and that's the fun of it.
Curtis says it's been challenging for the town to get funding and adequate resources to fully implement the plan.
It's a challenge to be Ellettsville in the county. It's just a challenge because most people think of Bloomington, and Bloomington is a bit like a force of nature that sort of pulls everyone along. Sometimes we're an afterthought, and it's frustrating.
Curtis hopes as the plan goes into motion and the community grows, more people will visit and enjoy what Ellettsville has to offer. For Indiana Newsdesk, I'm Isabella Vesperini.
Ellettsville Town Council voted this week to send a proposed Unified Development Ordinance back to the Planning Commission with amendments. The UDO included a controversial regulation on signs and flags. Now, if passed in its current form, it would have required permits for things such as political flags and yard signs. Some council members expressed that not adopting the UDO at the meeting would postpone Ellettsville's growth.
I do not understand how a 5-week delay will hinder growth. I really don't. We have to stick the landing on this.
Members of the public shared their opinion, saying the restriction on signs and flags inhibited freedom of speech and expression. A vote on an amended UDO will take place at the next town council meeting on August 26th. Terre Haute is in the middle of its park's 5-year master plan and seeking public input. I sat down with Mayor Brandon Sakbun this week at Fairbanks Park and talked about how city and county officials are looking to reconnect downtown with the Wabash River.
We are finalizing a riverfront development study, and Fairbanks Park is nestled on the river, so it's kind of bringing in the best of those two worlds, those planning spheres that are in operation right now. And we're really looking at unlocking some of our parks these next couple of years, and once that master plan is complete, that'll help us with some funding conversations. Of course, with those casino dollars coming in, that's always a conversation we like to be a part of. Take a look at the amphitheater. Actually, the Mayor's Youth Council is looking at how do they update the amphitheater, and they want to compete for an IHCDA placemaking grant. We'll be there to support them, and they're looking at doing the seating and some of the exterior, because amphitheaters are expensive to renovate. We're looking at all the playground equipment. We're looking at updating our shelters this year. Handling some of those projects with this year's budget opens the conversation for next year of doing true additions to the park. Our YMCA is staying strong with them, looking at their possible renovation. On top of that, we've got our nonprofit Wabash Valley crew. They actually want to put a boathouse on the river and activate, the sport of rowing here in our community. We partnered with the United States Army Corps of Engineers to really look at the conversation around bank stabilization and water levels, and it was a pretty foreign concept to me, right? I thought, riverfront development, a little bit of green space parks, and they're like, aha, young man, there's some other sides to this. And said, our local Soil and Water Conservatory, Vigo County, they've been very good to help us through that conversation, partnering with the United States Army Corps of Engineers as part of our riverfront development study.
Just check out our Ask the Mayor website for more and a link to that riverfront survey. Well, that's the end of this program, but our work continues online as we cover the news throughout the week at WTIUnews.org. Have a great weekend.
Indiana Newsdesk is made possible in part by Mallard Grodner Attorneys, providing legal services to clients and the community. Understanding, expertise, results. Bloomington and Indianapolis. LawMG.com. IU Center for Rural Engagement, extending IU Bloomington resources to improve Hoosier lives in partnerships with communities and organizations. Rural.indiana.edu. Smithville Fiber Internet Security Solutions and Voice in Southern Indiana. More information at smithville.com. Bunger and Robertson Attorneys at Law, utilizing 75 years of experience, knowledge, and resources to help individuals and families recover in personal injury matters. Information at lawbr.com. And by WTIU members. Thank you.